The eighth criterion is very important, sentence structure. So for persuasive text, we're talking about the production of grammatically correct, structurally sound, and meaningful sentences. And it's the same for the narrative text, the production of grammatically correct, structurally sound, and meaningful sentences. Sentence structure is a big one. It is important that your sentence structures are correct and you lose marks for poorly constructed sentences. Many students who obviously have good ideas and have a sense of audience can lose a lot of marks this way, so it's really important that you pay close attention to this one. Going back to my table, the two words that I suggest you remember in relation to sentence structure are correct and varied. So you not only need to make sure that your sentences are correct, but you also need a variety of sentence structures. Before you even think about this, you need to ask yourself, am I familiar with the difference between sentences and clauses? If not, you need to make sure that you become familiar or refamiliarize yourselves with those. Okay, as I mentioned, there are 6 marks for sentence structure and your sentences need to be correct. You need a variety of clause types and patterns, including verbless, adjectival, adverbial, multiple, and non-finite. So we'll give you another handout or guide to what all of those mean. You need variety in your sentence lengths and rhythms. You need increased elaboration and extension and stylistically appropriate choices. To summarize, in general, your writing needs controlled and well-developed sentences that express precise meaning and are consistently effective. Going back to basics, obviously a sentence is an independent clause, a clause that can stand on its own. Generally, a sentence will always have a subject and a verb, so something as basic as Josie cried is a sentence, and typically it will have a subject, verb, and object. But obviously there are a range of different lengths and they can increase in their complexity. So you need to make sure that you understand the different sentence structure options available to you and try and use as many of them as possible. I do want to mention the dreaded run-on sentence, sometimes called the comma splice. So there's an example of a run-on sentence in the middle of this slide. I love to write essays, comma, I would write one every day if I had the chance. So in that sentence, the comma should be replaced by a full stop, and there should be 2 separate sentences here. So you need to make sure that you avoid that because lots of students do it, and it's something that can lose you lots of marks. Be aware that verb control and preposition errors will be considered as sentence errors. So if you're a bit iffy on your prepositions, you need to make sure that you revise those, and there are some tables around there somewhere for you to do that. You also need to make sure that the subject and the verb of your sentence agree. So subject-verb agreement. What does that mean? So for example, sugar and flour are needed for the recipe is correct. Sugar and flour is needed for the recipe is incorrect because we have 2 things there. So sugar and flour, 2 different things. So the verb needs to be are. It needs to agree in number. Here is a table of preposition use. So you can see there it's just a bit of a guide. So at the top there you have to, of, with, at, about, for, on, in, from, and all the words that go under that. So for example, with to you can have accustomed to, addicted to, allergic to, etc. Whereas if you're saying accused, will be accused of, etc. On this slide here, there is a little bit of an overview of clause types. So you'll see there's the verbless clause, the adjectival clause, the adverbial clause, and then there are multiple clauses which you can find out about in the more sophisticated structures handout. So just as I said before, just remembering that you want to try and use as much variety in your sentence structure as you can. And I suggest that you have a bit of a read of this slide as well as the other handout that you'll be given.